Have you ever felt this confusion before? A woman you deeply care about suddenly becomes quiet. She replies slower. She avoids eye contact. She stops initiating conversations. And the only thought in your mind is, she's losing interest in me. But what if I told you something uncomfortable? What if the behavior you are calling avoidance is actually one of the strongest emotional attachment signals a woman can show? Today I want to show you something most men completely misunderstand. Because sometimes she is not pulling away, she is pulling herself back. And there is a massive psychological difference between the two. Before we begin, if you care about improving your love life, your confidence and your emotional control as a man, make sure you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and watch it till the very end. This one may quietly change the way you see women forever. The biggest mistake men make about female distance. Let me say this clearly. Men interpret distance through a male emotional lens. When men pull away, it usually means loss of interest, emotional detachment, replacement, or mental exit. So when a woman creates distance, your mind automatically translates it the same way. But female psychology does not operate on emotional simplicity. It operates on emotional regulation. A woman does not always pull back because she feels less. Very often, she pulls back because she feels too much, and that creates internal pressure. This pressure is what most men never notice. Why emotional closeness creates fear, not comfort. Here is something no one prepares you for as a man. Deep emotional connection is not automatically safe for a woman. It is powerful, and power creates vulnerability. When a woman begins to care deeply for you, her nervous system changes. Her emotional investment rises. Her internal risk rises. Her fear of loss rises. Her fear of making the wrong choice rises. Her fear of surrendering control rises. So instead of leaning forward, her mind may do something counterintuitive. It creates space. Not because you are unsafe, but because her emotions have become important. When something becomes important, the mind protects it. Distance becomes a psychological safety brake. Why women don't pull away from men they don't care about. Here is a brutal truth. If a woman truly does not care about you, she does not need distance. She disappears. She disengages casually. She forgets you easily. There is no emotional tension. There is no hesitation. There is no conflict inside her. But when she loves you too much, conflict appears. She begins negotiating with her own emotions. Her mind starts asking, am I moving too fast? Am I giving too much? Am I becoming emotionally dependent? What if I get hurt? What if this ends badly? And that internal questioning creates behavior men misread. Silence, slower replies, emotional restraint, shorter conversations, less emotional openness. Not because you lost value, but because your emotional value became dangerous to her stability. The hidden signal, emotional restraint. One of the strongest signs that she is emotionally attached is not expression. It is control. A woman who is emotionally invested begins managing how much she shows you. She monitors herself. She filters her reactions. She limits how available she appears, not because she is playing games, but because she is subconsciously protecting herself from becoming emotionally unbalanced. Women fear emotional dependence far more than men realize. A woman who feels herself emotionally leaning too heavily on one person becomes uncomfortable, even if that person is you. Even if you are kind, even if you are consistent, even if you are safe. The danger is not you. The danger is how deeply she is starting to rely on you emotionally. When she becomes quieter, not colder. Most men confuse quietness with emotional withdrawal, but they are not the same. Emotional withdrawal feels empty. Quiet emotional restraint feels tense. There is still warmth in her voice. There is still interest in your life. There is still subtle attention. There is still emotional presence. But there is less emotional exposure. She still listens carefully. She still remembers small details. She still reacts to your emotional shifts. She still notices when your mood changes, but she no longer pours her feelings out freely. That is not loss. That is emotional containment. The internal war she is fighting. Let me explain what actually happens inside her. One part of her wants closeness. Another part wants emotional safety. One part wants to trust you fully. Another part wants to stay in control. One part wants to fall. Another part wants to stay standing. This emotional contradiction creates stress, so her mind chooses a compromise. She does not leave. She does not move closer. She creates controlled distance. This is emotional balancing, not emotional abandonment. Why emotionally mature women do this even more. Here is something important for you, especially as a man who wants high-quality relationships. Emotionally mature women are more likely to pull back when feelings grow, not less, because they understand emotional consequences. They have experienced emotional collapse before. They have learned what emotional overattachment feels like. They know how painful emotional imbalance can become, so when they feel themselves starting to emotionally orbit someone, they regulate, they slow down, they create space, they observe their own emotional reactions. This is emotional intelligence, not emotional coldness. The moment you trigger her deepest vulnerability, the most dangerous moment in a woman's emotional life is not the beginning. It is not the flirting stage. It is not the excitement stage. It is the moment she realizes, I care about him more than I planned. That realization creates vulnerability, and vulnerability triggers self-protection. When a woman begins imagining you emotionally into her future, her subconscious becomes cautious, because future thinking activates lost thinking, and lost thinking activates fear. So what does she do? She becomes quieter. She becomes emotionally slower. She becomes more careful. She begins protecting her emotional equilibrium. Why men sabotage this phase? This is where most men destroy attraction without realizing it. When a woman pulls back slightly, the man panics. He increases pressure. He increases reassurance requests. He increases emotional intensity. He increases availability. He increases neediness. He increases emotional chasing. But here is the psychological problem. When she is already trying to regulate her emotional attachment, your emotional push creates imbalance. She begins to feel overwhelmed. Not because you are wrong, but because her nervous system is already overloaded by attachment. She does not need more emotional input. She needs emotional stability. Emotional safety is not emotional pursuit. There is a massive difference. Men think safety is created by constant texting, constant reassurance, constant emotional availability, constant attention. But female emotional safety is created by something far quieter. It is created by emotional centeredness. When she pulls back slightly, and you remain emotionally stable, not reactive, not anxious, not offended, not controlling. You communicate emotional leadership. You show her that emotional connection with you does not collapse your identity, that calms her nervous system, that allows her emotions to settle instead of escalate. Why your calmness is more attractive than your effort. Here is something men rarely understand. A woman can receive effort from many men, but emotional calm is rare. When you stay centered while she regulates her emotions, you become psychologically safe. Not predictable, not boring, safe. And safety is not comfort. Safety is emotional permission. Permission for her to feel without fear of emotional chaos. Permission for her to invest without losing control. Permission for her to move forward without anxiety. The paradox of emotional attraction. The deeper a woman's emotional attraction becomes, the more she must protect herself. This is the paradox. She does not move away from what is meaningless. She moves carefully around what matters. When you become emotionally important, you become emotionally powerful. And power requires emotional boundaries. So when you see her slowing down, do not immediately assume disinterest. Ask yourself a more mature question. Is she withdrawing? Or is she regulating? The silent signs she still deeply cares. Here are subtle indicators that she is not emotionally gone. She still checks your reactions. She still monitors your mood shifts. She still becomes slightly affected by your emotional tone. She still mirrors your emotional energy subconsciously. She still reacts emotionally to your absence. She still shows concern when something affects you. She still emotionally orients toward you even when conversation is limited. These micro-behaviors reveal emotional attachment, not avoidance. The mistake of forcing clarity. Men often demand emotional clarity too early. They ask, "What are we? Where is this going? Do you still care? Why are you different?" These questions may feel logical, but emotionally they apply pressure. When a woman is regulating her emotional attachment, she cannot answer these questions cleanly. She herself is still adjusting. By forcing verbal clarity, you interrupt emotional processing. You turn an internal emotional journey into an external performance. That creates emotional discomfort. Emotional attraction grows in emotional space. This is something men must learn deeply. Attraction does not grow under emotional surveillance. It grows in emotional breathing room. A woman needs psychological space to feel her own desire, to feel her own curiosity, to feel her own emotional pull. When you remove pressure, you allow her emotional gravity to operate naturally. Pressure disrupts desire. Stability allows it. Why her silence can mean she is thinking about you more. This may surprise you, but emotional silence often accompanies emotional reflection. She is replaying conversations. She is analyzing how she feels around you. She is comparing emotional states. She is observing herself. She is processing emotional shifts. You are still present in her mind, just not verbally. Internal processing replaces external expression. The difference between emotional fear and emotional loss feels light. Emotional fear feels heavy. If she lost interest, there would be emotional neutrality. If she fears emotional attachment, there is emotional tension. You can feel the difference in energy, in tone, in pacing, in subtle responses. One feels empty, the other feels restrained. Learn to distinguish emotional temperature, not communication frequency. Why emotionally stable men become rare. Most men respond emotionally. Very few men remain emotionally grounded. When a woman sees that emotional closeness does not destabilize you, that emotional uncertainty does not weaken you, that emotional shifts do not control you, you become rare, not aggressive, not dominant, centered, emotionally self-contained. That is deeply attractive to emotionally mature women. The real meaning of she needs space. Space is not rejection. It is recalibration. It is emotional integration. It is psychological alignment. It is her mind aligning her feelings with her identity. When she cares deeply, her emotions must fit into her life structure. That requires time, not persuasion, not pressure, not emotional bargaining. Why your patience becomes emotional leadership. Patience is not passive. It is emotional strength. When you remain steady, you allow her emotional turbulence to pass. You become the emotional reference point. You become predictable emotionally, not behaviorally. That builds trust quietly. Trust that grows without pressure lasts longer. The silent challenge for you. Here is your challenge. The next time you notice emotional distance, don't panic. Do not fill it with nervous talking. Do not chase it with anxious texting. Do not interrogate it with what's wrong every 5 minutes. Do not dramatize it into a story about rejection, because most emotional distance is not danger, it's space. And space is where attraction either dies or deepens. Hold your emotional center. When she pulls back slightly, your instinct might scream, "Fix this. Secure this. Reassure yourself." But strength is not in reaction. It's in regulation. Continue your life. Go to the gym. Focus on your work. Meet your friends. Build your mission. Let your behavior communicate what your words don't need to. I am grounded. I am steady. I am not collapsing because energy shifted. Maintain your standards. Do not suddenly overgive. Do not start performing for approval. Do not lower your boundaries just to keep her comfortable. Distance often tests emotional stability. If you shrink your standards to reduce discomfort, you silently teach people that your values are negotiable. Protect your time. Respond or don't hover. Engage, don't orbit. Be available and not on standby. Stay engaged but not dependent. Present but not pressing. Open but not emotionally leaking. There is power in subtle restraint. When you don't rush to control the dynamic, you communicate emotional leadership. You show that your identity does not dissolve because someone's mood shifted. And here's the psychology behind it. When you give space without resentment, without passive aggression, without emotional punishment, her nervous system relaxes. She doesn't feel chased. She doesn't feel pressured to perform. She doesn't feel responsible for stabilizing you. That safety is attractive. That steadiness feels rare. Let her nervous system settle. Let her emotions recalibrate naturally. Let attraction breathe instead of suffocating it with urgency. Because the truth is this: people move closer to what feels stable. They retreat from what feels needy. Silence handled with strength is louder than reassurance handled with fear. So the next time distance appears, smile internally, not because you don't care, but because you trust yourself enough to remain centered. That is the silent challenge, not to control her emotions, but to master your own. Why emotional maturity creates magnetic presence. Men often believe attraction is created by stimulation, but long-term emotional attraction is created by stability. Your calm becomes her emotional ground. Your consistency becomes her emotional relief. Your emotional independence becomes her psychological safety. That combination is rare, and rarity creates desire. One uncomfortable truth you must accept: you cannot control how fast someone processes emotional attachment. You cannot rush emotional integration. You cannot shortcut vulnerability. But you can control your emotional posture. You can choose to be centered. You can choose to be grounded. You can choose to be emotionally complete on your own. And that is what allows her to move toward you freely, not because you pulled her, but because she feels safe enough to come. Final message. Sometimes, the reason she is quiet is not because she is losing interest. It is because she is protecting her heart. Sometimes, the reason she steps back is not because you failed. It is because you became emotionally significant. Sometimes, distance is not emotional absence. It is emotional gravity being managed carefully. Remember this: a woman is not always loyal to how much you give. She is loyal to how safe she feels inside herself when she is with you. Your emotional structure becomes her emotional permission. Your stability becomes her emotional comfort. Your centered presence becomes her quiet invitation. And if you remember only one thing from this video, remember this: when she loves you deeply, intensely, sometimes the space she asks for is not an exit door, it's a regulator. When emotions get strong, especially for women who feel deeply, the nervous system can become overwhelmed. Not because the connection is wrong, not because you did something terrible, but because intensity needs rhythm, closeness, space, connection, autonomy. If she loves you too much too fast, part of her may step back, not to escape you, but to stay balanced while staying emotionally connected to you. Think about that. Real attachment isn't constant proximity. It's sustainable connection. If you panic when she steps back, you turn a moment of recalibration into pressure. If you stay grounded, you turn space into safety. A secure man understands this. Love breathes. Attraction has a pulse. Emotional intensity needs recovery time. Sometimes her distance is not rejection. It's self-regulation. And your job is not to control that rhythm. It's to remain steady inside it. That steadiness is what keeps her emotionally safe enough to return closer. Willingly. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.